How's it going, everyone? It's been Monkey coming back at you once again, and today we're going to be discussing Action Comics, Volume 1, Superman and the Men of Steel by Grant Morrison with art by Rags Morales. Let's get into it. Superman gets a confession out of a corrupt Metropolis official named Glenn Morgan. Lex Luthor makes good on his promise and he delivers Superman to General Lane after Superman stops a derailed bullet train that crashes into the Daily Planet. Lex Luthor and General Lane, they take Superman to an undisclosed facility where they try to test his limits via electric shock and poisonous gases. Superman ultimately escapes that predicament, and as he's fleeing the facility, he finds the Kryptonian rocket that he was sent to Earth in, that the government has been holding ever since Superman arrived in Smallville. And we get a scene where Lex Luthor is shown communicating with an unknown alien entity. We cut to Clark. He's having nightmares about the fall of Krypton. A soldier named John Corbin, he undergoes the Steel Zero treatment, where he gets encased in like the steel suit that the government has been experimenting with and designing so that they could take out Superman, because they knew aliens were among them when he landed in Smallville. So they've been working on this all this time, and now John Corbin decides he's going to take it upon himself to put on the suit before it's ready so he can stop Superman, but something goes wrong. Then we get the invasion of the Terminauts. Superman ends up taking on the Terminauts and a corrupted John Corbin with the steel suit on. However, John Henry Irons, who is the developer of the steel suit, has his own steel suit that he has been working on behind the scenes at his house, and he ends up making a save for Superman. And Steel, John Henry Irons, he ends up defeating John Corbin by uploading a virus into his steel suit. And it's at this point where Metropolis gets bottled. It becomes one of Brainiac's bottled cities. And General Lane, desperate because his daughter Lois is trapped, encased in that bottle, asks Superman, the alien he was just trying to kill, for help. Now it's here in issue 5 where we take a left turn, shall we say, and we get like 2 issues where the main story takes a back seat. The first issue is dealing with the Kryptonian rocket that brought Superman to Earth and his kryptonite engine that gets stolen by the anti-Superman army. And the next issue is dealing with Superman from 5 years in the future coming back in time with the Legion of Superheroes so that they could get back that kryptonite engine and restore it to the rocket so that the timeline goes as it's supposed to, and the young Superman can end up defeating this invasion. Anyway, issue 7 here, we're back on track, and Superman, he ends up going to the Collector of Worlds ship up in orbit in space, and he's forced to decide by the Brainiac Collective, does he want to save Metropolis and the Earth people, or does he want to restore and save, the city of Kandor, which is full of Kryptonians? While on the Collector of Worlds ship, Superman, he's in like this Kryptonian part of like almost like a museum where like the Collective, they collect societies and their relics and stuff, right? So this is where he stumbles upon like a suit that ends up becoming the Superman suit. It's an indestructible suit. He puts it on. It takes on the red and blue colors, and he ends up defeating the Brainiac Collective here by using the technology stored within his Kryptonian rocket ship to turn Brainiac's ship into his Fortress of Solitude. Of course, he decides that he's going to save Metropolis, and Superman is officially like unveiled to the world. The mayor gives him the key to the city, and we're off and running here. This is a new origin of the New 52 Superman. So if you stuck with me this far, I wanted to talk about how I'm reviewing this volume, Volume 1, Superman and the Men of Steel, but I'm not actually reading the trade. I'm reading the issues contained within the trade, because oftentimes in this era of DC Comics, the main stories would feature like a backstory, and this happens multiple times throughout this run. And I'm not sure if they get collected in Superman Volume 1. Like, for instance, Steel defeating John Corbin, that's in a backstory. We get a whole bunch of backstory here about Jonathan and Martha Kent and their inability to have children when then all of a sudden, the Superman rocket comes down, and we all know the same old story about how they take in Clark Kent. We're going to be a backstory that the Kents in this timeline, they're dead, and Superman, he's on his own. We get a backstory where Superman leaves his Smallville farm behind, leaves it to a neighbor, and he goes off to Metropolis. Uh, there's a whole bunch of backstories. I'm not sure if they get collected in the trades. I hear that they oftentimes don't, and I guess they're just maybe lost media or whatever. But that's why I decided that even though this volume contains issues 1 through 8 of Action Comics, I'm going to read the actual issues that it says the volume contains, so I can give you guys the complete story. Hope that's not too confusing for you. And being that this is an all-new timeline, an all-new Superman, and this is set 5 years in the past, the main Superman book takes place in the present. This is the origin taking place, 5 years in the past. So it's interesting to see that, like, Lois Lane, she's dating John Corbin, and the whole reason why John Corbin decides he's going to put on the steel suit and save the world is because he wants to save Lois, because she's writing all these articles about Superman and Clark Kent, and he's like, well, I could be a Superman too. I could be a hero as well. But he, of course, puts on the steel suit, and it goes wrong because it turns out that Brainiac, before he destroys these planets and captures and bottles one of their cities, he sort of like absorbs all their knowledge, right? On Krypton, he was known as Brainiac 1.0, but on Earth, he was known as, get this, the Internet. So think about how we use the Internet in our real life, right? We upload all this stuff. Everything about our society is uploaded to the Internet. We all go to Wikipedia to learn stuff, right? And in this New 52 universe, the Internet was Brainiac, and he was absorbing all this information before he made his invasion and destroyed the world. So it's a pretty crazy idea there from Grant Morrison. And the Superman we get to meet here, at first, he's kind of like a little bit Batman-ish. He's a little bit harsher. He's rooting out corruption, like with Glenn Morgan there, coercing a confession out of him. Like I said, like Batman style. Batman would dangle a guy off the roof. Superman's just like holding him up, laser eyes, just threatening him, saying, hey, I know what you're up to. Now admit it. But of course, the confession wasn't being able to be used in court. But a good portion of this story features around Glenn Morgan, his corruption, the Metropolis PD going after him, going after Superman. The army with General Lane going after Superman. We really get to see that the state of the world here, 5 years in the past, it's pretty crazy. I really enjoyed that aspect of this story. Another character who I'm interested in this New 52 is Lois Lane, because it's kind of a spoiler, but in this New 52 era, Lois Lane and Clark Kent, they don't ever get married. They don't ever date. So I want to see how Lois is handled. And we get to see a little bit of that here. Like we said, her relationship with, John Corbin. And we see her and Jimmy Olsen. They're in the thick of things while the action is going down. Jimmy's still the photographer. She's the reporter. She's asking, tough questions of characters like Lex Luthor and Glenn Morgan. And she's writing all these articles about Superman. So I'm really interested to see how her character is developed moving forward here. Lex Luthor in New 52, this is our introduction to him as well. He's always seen like drinking energy drinks. I don't know if that's to signify that he's like high strung or whatever. But yeah, it shows that he's communicating with the Brainiac Collective because he thinks that he's going to be spared. What he didn't realize was that he would be spared by having to live in the Battle City, which he did not appreciate when the time came. And Lex is kind of shown playing both sides. Like, he wants to capture and study Superman, but at the same time, he wants to like be Superman. So there's like a weird scene towards the end of the book where Clark Kent is like interviewing Lex Luthor, and Clark is saying, "Hey, you were right about the the detonation the bombs planted on like the rail train and all these things you predicted you were right about. And I guess Brainiac was feeding him the information to do it. And it's just a little confusing at this state. Was he playing both sides? Or, because Clark had asked Lex Luthor if he's Superman. And like, what? You would know, Clark, you're Superman. So, I don't know. The Fortress of Solitude, being Brainiac's ship. That's an interesting wrinkle, huh? It's not over in the Antarctic yet, or anymore, I should say. Uh, we'll see how that plays out, hopefully, in the future issues. As far as a new origin story for Superman, I guess this one's pretty good. I mean, it hits the ground running. It's called Action Comics. I read like an interview in the back of the issues where Grant Morrison was talking about he always wanted to have things moving forward. He didn't want to stand still. The book has to depict action, action, action. And you get a lot of that here. Rags Morales' art, pretty good, no complaints. We ended up getting those 2 issues here. Issues, I believe it's 5 and 6, where I guess, Rags Morales had to catch up, so he comes back for 7 and 8. So we got this filler story with the art by Andy Kubert. Again, one of my favorites. Pretty fantastic. Even if the stories were kind of weak, but it did sort of all tie in, so I'll allow it, right? But it's just a shame that we had to have that gap right there. Who knows? Maybe in the collection there is no gap, but it depends how they do it. But like I said, I'm reading the issues contained within, so that was my reading experience where the story had to go on pause. But at least Grant Morrison tied it in, so it wasn't like a complete out of left field. What is this? But like I said, as far as the origin story, Ma and Pa Kent, being dead here, that's new. Usually they're there to guide Clark, help him with like morality stuff. But here they're dead, and we're seeing this like utterly alien Superman. He's in Metropolis. He's all alone. Sure, he was raised by the Kents, so they instilled some of that in him. But he's not going to be going to Jonathan Kent, for wisdom anymore. So we'll just have to see how that plays out going forward. I've read a couple origin stories for Superman. I read the John Byrne one. I read the Jeff Johns one. Now here with this Grant Morrison one. As far as how it stacks up, I can't really say at this point. It's a good origin, I believe, for this Superman, who is really only contained within the New 52. He lives and dies here. So I'm reading these books with more of like an interest in this Superman, because consensus is he's not really well liked. A lot of people shit talk this Superman. So I'm reading these books, really trying to see why, or maybe is there anything likable about him? This first volume is sort of like a change in tone, but that's a New 52 for you in general. All the characters are supposed to be younger and edgier or whatever. So when you're seeing a Superman taking these characters hostage and being like, hey, Metropolis, if you're messing around, expect a visit from me or whatever. It's a lot different than Superman showing up on the scene because he's saving like a falling plane or a rocket ship. He's here. He's outrooting, corruption. I can see why the army would be pointing their tanks at him. So overall, this is a Grant Morrison book. There's some, what the fuckery going on, and you got some nice funny moments and some heartfelt moments here in the book. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 5 out of 5, I know. But I feel like it's a good starting point, not just for Superman, but for the New 52. And you can't go wrong by reading it. If you read it, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. And until next time, I'll see you there.